Normally, I don't do political posts in terms of political issues. They don't particularly interest me. I don't have a left or right wing viewpoint. I don't particularly care for conservatives any more than I do for bleeding heart liberal types. The worst kind. I think the middle path is always the way. And because I feel this way, I have a fanatical belief in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. That people should be allowed to express any political opinion they like, once it doesn't call for direct violence against people who hold a different opinion. Now, one of the universities here in Maynooth, in Ireland, called Maynooth, a Bolshevik professor, which is happening more and more within Irish academia, where professors are put educating people who pay their tuition fees secondary to his own political agenda or her political agenda. And in every single case, it's extreme left wing ideology, cultural Marxism, and so on. This guy in Maynooth, who looks like, your typical academic, if you were to flick him like that, he would fall over and cry for his mother. And there's photographs with him with the current president of Ireland, the Yellow Star, a digital fax ID, Yellow Star Higgins. And they're all jolly good friends, this kind of thing, because they're all like basically on the same side politically and ideologically and so on, which is counter to the wishes of 99% of the Irish people. Well, anyway, this guy had this guy set up a think tank of certain vested interests, basically everyone who agreed with him. And they actually used the term in their document, the growth of the far right in Ireland, which I haven't seen a far right anywhere here. I'm not aware of anything that's far right. Far right to me would be the National Front, like you have in England, or BNP. We don't have anything like that in Ireland. The Nationalist Party, if you look at their mandate, is basically what the Tories in England were in the 80s. And it's really not that far right at all. It's right. It's probably right as things go now, but it's not far right. Far right to me is like the most extreme form of totalitarianism regarding things like, you know, extreme forms of, ethnic superiority and things like that. I'm aware of nothing like that in Ireland. Nothing, not one group or anything like that in Ireland. These people far right is anyone who has an opinion that's not the same as theirs. That's exactly what it is. Now, this guy openly called for militant action. This group called for militant action against people on the far right. Now, basically, as we saw, they can declare anyone far right. Anyone who doesn't agree with them is instantly declared far right. It's it's like the whole thing of saying the greater good. Who decides what the greater good is? And calling someone far right is the new form of saying, well, we're against them for the greater good because it's their greater good. Now, these people who are calling others far right, they're often from the Irish establishment. They're often very well paid and very, lifelong jobs in academia and stuff like this. And they're calling for militant action. Now, this is language of what we look up the meaning of the term militant in the dictionary, and it means a violent suppression of to enforce one's dogma or beliefs. Now, so they're calling for a violent attacks of anyone who holds a different political opinion than them. They're not asking for debates. They're not asking for mediation. They're not asking for it to be decided at the ballot box. They want militant action. Now you have to remember, to them, what I love about my this is aimed at mostly my Irish audience. My Irish audience are pretty typical of most people in Ireland. They're not they're not woke psychotics. Okay, so these what these people would declare as someone who would say I talked about what the trans issue today is not really about adults who are trapped in the wrong body. It's about Munchausen by proxy mothers, either looking for likes and tweets on social media or trying to get back at their ex-husband or the child's father by putting their 5-year-old autistic son on hormone blockers, castrating him. That's what the trans movement is today. Now, 99% of the people in Ireland would be revolted and disgusted by that. This academic at Maynooth and his little coterie want a violent, militant actions against Irish people who think you shouldn't put a child on hormone blockers. They don't want to educate you. They don't want to even silence you. They've already got that, more or less. What they want is militant action. And considering this guy's photograph is next to the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins, he's on their team too. Guilt by association. This is what we're up against. They want militant violence. Where have we seen this before? Pol Pot in the Khmer Rouge, the Stasi in Eastern Germany, the Securite in Romania, the NKVD in Soviet Union, the Gestapo in National Socialism, and on and on and on. And you'll find in all those movements, the tyrants and the genocidal morons and the most vicious killers were surrounded by academics who were telling them, "Yes, this is correct. This is reason. This is reason." And Irish people have to start really. We need to start investigating our universities. Once this guy in Maynooth said he wanted militant action, he has essentially declared and mobilized against Irish people who hold a different opinion of him. So if this was a civil war situation, he's declared open violence against Irish people who hold different political opinions than him. And therefore, as a result, he has to understand that he's now a marked person. Will he be so jolly chuckle at his next dinner wine party with all his little left-wing friends talking about the far right if he finds himself suddenly on the end of the militancy that he advocated? Because when you attack somebody, when you want a militant approach upon them, they generally strike back with a militant response. Is he going to, of course he will call the local police up and say, right-wing thugs are coming to get me. These people are dangerous and they're delusional as well. They're also dangerous to their own families. This dimwit has no idea that what he's doing when he steps into the arena using language like, we need a militant approach against people who have far-right opinions, especially as there's no far-right in Ireland. I can't find a far-right in Ireland anywhere. They don't exist. They're purely a fiction that exists in the mind of the chattering classes. They're nowhere else on academia. They're a fiction that, you have to remember, they've made everything far-right. Even 1980s liberalism would be far-right to them now. So it's one thing for them to, when they have to use language like militant, what they're really saying is they can't win the argument straight up. So if you're going to use that language like we need a militant response, like for instance, that white knight loser who punched Stephen Kerr at that town hall meeting in West Dublin at Ruth Coppinger, another Bolshevik, having a meeting. And not the way these people claim they're for the working class. That's the funniest part of all. But apparently he's deleted his whole tweets and his whole Twitter because he's a hero in the moment when he's having all these infantile chemicals flushing through his body. But as soon as the chickens came home to roost, he ran away in terror. Well, this guy in Maynooth who's calling for militant action against people of different opinions of him, this academic, the only reason he can be like that is his delusions haven't been shattered by the chickens not coming home to roost yet. It will be interesting to see at what point these chattering classes Bolsheviks push the average Irish person into a corner to the point where Mr. Professor Militant is on the receiving end of what he's advocating to people for no other reason than they hold a different opinion than him. Take care.